Uh-oh. There we go. All right, what's up, everybody? I was sent some very nice retro boxes from Rochester CCG. It's very cool stuff. I think you guys have seen some of these box openings from Tam and David streams in the past, and this is probably going to be no different. Except I'm going to do them one at a time. I think they both did it all at once. I'm going to try to do it one at a time, and I was trying to think of the best way to go about it, and the way that makes the most sense to me is to do it chronologically. So, to my knowledge, all this stuff on Ultra is listed, chronologically from newest to oldest. Some of the older stuff might be a little mixed up, but that means Battle for Power is the oldest set of the bunch. So, I'm going to try to open a box every day. I think I have to do two on Wednesday or something like that, but we're going to open a box every day. And then at the end of the week, on Wednesday, I'm going to build a deck from the cards I opened to play in the Retro Wednesday Webcam Weekly. Excuse me, I came down with a little bit of a cold halfway through today, but I said I was going to do this, so I'm going to do it. So, Battle for Power is really interesting in a lot of ways. It was, in my experience, the first big power creep of the Jasco Games era. I think it was the fifth set they put. No, I guess they did all the KOF stuff. So they had 3 King of Fighters sets, they had 2 Red Horizon sets, and then there was Mega Man, Rise of the Masters, and Darkstalkers, Warriors of the Night. And this is the second Mega Man set, and it is the first time that anyone had suggested to me that we draft universes. There's a difficulty with drafting before Battle for Power because a lot of the sets were King of Fighters sets and they were sold out, or Red Horizon stuff was like made to print and one of the sets was missing an entire symbol and stuff like that. So there's a lot going on, but this was one of the first times people had really pushed draft to me. And I can't say for sure if it was designed for draft or limited, but I know a lot of people who did draft it and did have fun drafting this. I went to Gen Con the year that Battle for Power was coming out. I volunteered with Jasco Games. It was a life-changing trip overall. It's probably the first time I had left Vegas and gone somewhere other than California. Definitely the first time I went to Indianapolis. And the only time I've been to Indianapolis, I guess. I went to St. Louis, but not Indianapolis. And so it was a very cool trip. Not everything was great, obviously, but the one thing I remember is we were all excited to get paid in store credit because we could get a whole lot of boxes of Battle for Power. And I think the math ended up being I could get like 5 boxes or almost a case, something like that, right? And everyone was taking their boxes and like drafting. They were doing like mini 4-person pods. They were doing 6-person pods when they can. People were doing like box versus box limited, kind of like a sealed thing. There's a lot of limited stuff that was happening immediately. We got to get the boxes before anyone else. Well, not anyone else, but people who got their stuff at Gen Con were the people to get their first hands on Battle for Power. And there was a lot riding on it. This set had to sell pretty well, especially if we wanted to continue like justifying Mega Man. Mega Man's a really cool property, don't get me wrong, but we were digging pretty deep. We were digging pretty deep on some of the characters in this set. So it's got the first time I remember seeing a 1-check printed in a set. I don't believe Rise of the Masters or Warriors of the Night had a 1-check. So 1-checks were kind of a big deal here. And this is the first time I had seen rechecking. So these were new ideas, and rechecking ended up being too good. There was another card that also rechecked, but it rechecked basically anything from a different product. And so rechecking, you might see erratas on a lot of those cards and limitations. Huge cards that came out of this set are almost all errated or banned in some way. The big number one thing is Napalm Man. I actually have the mat for Nationals down here, Napalm Man mat. Napalm Man was the big boogeyman out of this set, though there was lots and lots of potential for powerful cards, and a lot of cards did end up getting touched. But this is the first time aggression was really pushed in design. This is the first time they said, okay, we need games to end. We got to make a bunch of really aggressive characters, and you'll see as we open stuff up. I'll take note of all the characters as we go through them. Oh, this box is open. Box opens very weird. There we go. Okay, and so there's a lot of big numbers. There's like burn damage, but one thing that's really cool in this is every character really felt like they kind of had their own niche, and they did share. Oh, JCAs, thank you for the 14 months, man. That is a crazy sublink. I think you might be the longest. I don't know if I've seen a number. I've seen a couple 12s, which I'm very appreciative of. But if it's not you, it's like Nick Reagan. So, but yeah. So every character definitely felt like they were doing their own thing, and where they had overlap was very cool. So the box topper is Dark Laser. Let me see if I can get my autofocus. I changed the focus earlier, but it made the actual box look terrible. And now, see, it's not going to autofocus. I'm just going to have to manually focus this. Let me see. Come on. Help me out. I promise this looked better earlier. Alright, I'm just going to manually do this. I'm so over it. Let me see here. Probably happen in real time. Oh, I missed it. Is that better? Not really, huh? They had a vertical maneuvering up here, the foil one. Oh, that's too close. See, I was using this. Maybe it's because it's not foil. Alright, we'll figure it out. So Dark Laser, if you can't see, it's a powerful attack, it's a safe attack, and it says this attack gets -1 damage and +2 to its powerful rating. You get to add 1 safe attack from your discard pile to your momentum. I don't have a ring light. I have a light that's across the room. I can try messing with the lighting. It's definitely... Let me just turn off the color correction. No, that's not better. No. Huh. I swear this was doing a lot better earlier. That's funny. Okay. Well, the autofocus is turned off right now. Right now it's not auto. I just had it manual. See, I can get close. Yeah, it might just be the glare. We'll see if it's on all the cards. If it is, you know, maybe you can follow along on Ultra. I'm going to be reading them out as we go. I pretty much know what all these cards do, because this was right when I was starting to get really invested. And this is right when we were starting to travel from Vegas. I didn't travel too much. I don't really like traveling overall, so it was a hard sell for me. And I was very busy. You know, when I had a really nice job and I had the extra income, I really regret not traveling a little bit more. I always spent it on like leveling up my lifestyle rather than actually doing things. And you know, items don't last forever, right? I appreciate the support. I do care about the cards though, because I do need to make a deck out of these for retro. So the major themes in Battle for Power, the ones that I remember, the ones that I enjoy, are um, one check tribal or archetypal, I guess you could say. So there's like a low checks matters character with Tengu Man. There is building foundations synergy with Turbo Man. And those are two of my favorite things. Building a lot, of course, helps you overcome when you check bad. And building foundations as you go is a great way to dodge bad checks, right? If you play a zero diff and it clears your card pool and you check the one on it, then you probably feel really good. So those are the cards I'm really hoping to pick up. The other one that I was talking about before here is we've got safe attacks with powerful. So base, the poster child for this set, is actually just Bakugo 4. If you know how Bakugo 4 works, just replace Fury with safe. Safe is a keyword that prevents reversals, which aren't relevant anymore. And it was really just picked as a way to have a functioning keyword rather than a flavor keyword, and to make sure it's like not a lot of attacks, to give his damage reduction into bonus style of play, right? And so there was a lot of really nice damage reduction on his symbols. He has Earth, he has Void. Air kind of tagged along. He didn't really have a lot going on Air, but he was very much an Air character because he also had a sub theme of clearing his own card pool and making the rival lose cards from their hand. So that stuff is all really powerful by itself. I'm a big fan of the Air symbol in general, and because the Air symbol cards care about ranged attacks, and pretty much all of base's attacks are lasers and ranged attacks, and he's got, you know, 2 checks and things like that, they go pretty well with the Tengu Man stuff. So you can see where there's threads that are built between the different characters, and they weirdly have like the same mentality. It's almost like the same attitude. I don't think there was any characters in this set that you could consider defensive, except maybe Nightman. And Nightman was more about playing like a big reversal, and he just responds on block to lock things in your card pool. But he doesn't do a very good job of clogging your pool. He doesn't have the water symbol. So Nightman is maybe the most defensive character, but he's really more of a character that turns your follies into his offense, right? So you're going to see a lot of aggressive stuff. You're going to see not a lot of minus speed on characters. And the other thing you'll probably see is characters that can attack without foundations. Tomahawk Man has a sub theme of having less foundations than his opponents, and a major theme of playing 0 speed mid attacks. So I'm going to get into the cards here, and you'll just see as we go kind of what I'm talking about. So first up, we have Petrol Powered. Petrol Powered is one of the best examples of this entire set. This is after you play this card, if you have, was it 3 or more? If you have 3 or more foundations, you build it from your card pool, and then it has a response. After you build it from anywhere, your next attack gets +2 damage. So this is exactly what I was talking about, where you're trying to play foundations in the middle of a string, you're trying to build them down as you go, and then you get bonus damage. But it counts being built from anywhere. So any effect that you have that can build it can proc you some bonus damage. And then Turbo Man himself commits cards that are built during the turn to give +2 speed and +2 damage, which at the time was more speed and damage than I think any other character could give on more than one attack in the turn. So a difficult cost to pay, but a really big payoff for a 7-hander. Next we have Fire Slash. Fire Slash is a Fireman card. Fireman had a lot of stun effects, and he wanted to commit the rival out. He wanted to reveal weapons from his hand for bonuses. So this has reveal 1 weapon card from your hand. This attack gets +3 damage. This card was really good in the limited environment that I saw it in. It has no block, but it is a 4 high for 9. It is a 4 high for 9 pretty much every time you play it, and that was really, really good at the time for limited play. I didn't see it outside of limited play, but for like the people who were drafting in their hotel rooms right after buying the set, this card was frustrating to deal with. If you were a 7-hander, it was half your health. Stolen Sword, another great example of this all symbol sort of idea of building foundations as we play them and being a swordman weapon card. After you play this card, your opponent commits one. So it's kind of got like a nice little stun effect. I think Serum Bullet is the card that does it in standard now. Um, Unsurprisingly, shares no symbols with this card. But yeah, so Serum Bullets has the same static, I believe. This works when you block with it, which is really nice. But then it also has an enhance to reveal a weapon foundation or a weapon card from your hand, and then the next weapon foundation you play builds. So that's another great way to build as you go. This was a huge part of the really high roll, aggressive Turbo Man decks that I saw, or a strategy that became known as Wheel and Steel, because you had Steel Resurrection, which ignored weapon cards in your card pool, and you had Scorch Wheel, which is from this set, which at the time ignored all attack cards in your card pool when you play it. So you had a natural evolution of play all my weapon attacks, play all my Steel Resurrections, play all my Scorch Wheels, and Scorch Wheel drew a card for every foundation you built during the combat phase. So the more Stolen Swords you had pumping out foundations into your stage, the more you could refill your hand. Egg Drop, this is a Slashman card. Slashman actually ended up top cutting Worlds, but I think it was a sandbag to play a much more powerful character under it. But this is a low difficulty attack that has powerful 2 on it, and it has your opponent discards 1 momentum, seal this attack. So Slashman had this kind of cute ability where he could give a lot of stats to cards that don't have abilities. Very similar to Ryukyu of his time. He had a dragon power, he had a plus damage, I think. So his whole thing was he could play really cheap little attacks that didn't cost much because they would seal themselves. They would have 1 ability, and then he could generate momentum during his attacks that didn't have abilities, but it was only once per turn. I'm like 90% sure that part was once per turn, unlike Ryukyu. And then he was a 7-hander, so Egg Drop was just a cute little way to play a short, small difficulty attack that has the right keywords. Hate on the opponent's momentum, and then it's a 3 high 3 that's going to get buffed a lot. There's another Fire Slash in the same pack, so that's kind of neat to know that can happen. Here's Kamataichi. So this one's funny. It's got Desperation 4, so it becomes a 4 diff, 4 mid 5 if you have less than half health. But it also has Enhance, reveal the top card of your deck. If it has a control of 1, add it to your hand. That's pretty baller when you're trying not to check a 1 check. The fact that it goes to your hand is also absolutely insane. This was one of the only 3 checks you would play in the 1 check decks for very obvious reasons. Ranged and safe, both important keywords, because all the 1 checks you were playing pretty much cared about the ranged keyword or had it themselves. You had to combo range for the main part of the offense. And then safe would stop your combos from getting messed up a lot of the time. And then enhance, if this attack is blocked, ready 1 foundation that has not been readied this phase. So it also kind of helps you if you do check bad. Although if you check a 1 on this card, it's probably not going to matter if they block it and you get 1 foundation back, but it's still pretty nice. And ooh, okay, first pack magic. We got a Scorch Wheel. Now, this card has been errated to not have the progressive ignoring ability on it. It now just draws a bunch of cards. But in its original iteration, this was absolutely the number 1 ultra rare to pull from this set. So it's pretty cool to see it in the first pack. The original Scorch Wheel had attacks in your card pool do not count towards progressive difficulty to play this card at all. So as a block, as an attack, as anything. And then gender male, draw 1 card for each foundation, that has been added to your stage. And it's very funny. This card has gender male restriction because of exactly one character that happens to share two symbols with this card. And all she did really was she builds a free foundation at the start of the turn, and then she can destroy a foundation to build a foundation from her hand, and then play another in hands. So obviously, this card would get out of hand really, really fast in her. So it's kind of funny. I don't think the restriction like makes sense flavor wise, but it makes sense from a game impact stance that you don't want the character who already free builds and can destroy a committed to build a ready to also be drawing a million. So this is really cool, just as like a piece of history of the game, because Wheel and Steel dominated at least one Worlds for me and pushed a lot of defensive decks, maybe not out of the metagame, but in the teams format where you could pick and choose. I remember playing the best defensive deck. We went up against the other Vegas team who had like a mirrored composition of our team, and the Wheel and Steel decks both beat the Dimitri decks that were at the time the most oppressive defensive wall decks. And then it was up to a mirror match of Snake Man decks to determine the winner. So this is a cool little piece of history. We're going to put this one off to the side. I should really be organizing these as I go. Battle for Power markedly has a lot of attacks in it. A lot of attacks at the common slot. And the foundations are probably going to be a little less so. Capsule Zap, if you paid attention to the retro events that Broberg won, or at least was like top 2 or whatever, this is a huge part of the Wily kit. This is a 3 difficulty attack that builds an ally foundation. And if you remember Hardened Jab back in set 1 MHA, that card basically got turn 1 attacking banned. And Capsule Zap is an even better version of that a lot of the time. You do have to have an ally foundation specifically, but that's obviously not very hard when your deck is built with every ally foundation you can play. Excuse me. Next up, we got for Chivalry and Honor. So this is a Nightman card. This one was really weird. R flip after your opponent plays an attack, its damage cannot be modified. This was not played anywhere near as much as it would be today. If you notice, Always Cool is a 2/5 that has to destroy itself as another baller ability. This is a 2/4 that only flips but does nothing else. And I don't remember seeing this card very, very much at all. It was pretty important for the symbols that it was on, but I didn't see these symbols get played very much. And if they did, they were doing like something very specific on their own almost. But this was probably one of the more underrated cards. And going into a retro environment, this one might be pretty important considering I'm going to have a limited pool of cards to build from. Nearly Consumed. So this is a Mega Man only thing. I haven't talked about the Mega Man from this set because he's one of the weirdest characters. He's a stacker character who kind of does nothing on his own. He's very much meant to do stuff with the other Mega Man characters. You can play him if you draft enough of them, like in a limited environment, pretty well. But this one is R Destroy. After you take 4 or more damage, add 1 character card from your discard pile to your staging area. So it just says if I get hit, I get to stack a character. It's pretty neat. I'm sure there's like some strategy out there where a character who becomes super busted when they get all 4 stacked are willing to do whatever it takes to stack. But when's the last time you were just down to take 4 damage, right? In retro, controlling things down to 4 damage doesn't sound super likely. That's pack number 1. We already got a Scorch Wheel. So I'd have to say this box is a win. Like, I don't know what else I could really ask for coming out of this set. Off the top of my head. Obviously, I want to play Tengu Dive, but you have to have a lot of Tengu Dive and a lot of the support to pull that off. So I don't know if that's really going to be a possibility. But Scorch Wheel, even in its errated state, might end up being one of the better attacks that we have. Alright, so now we got Senshi no Soshu. So this one's very, very weird, very funny. This is after you play this card, your next check gets +2. So There weren't too many shenanigans you could do with it at the time, but they definitely did exist. It works on block, which is really cool. And then twice per turn, you can ready one of your opponent's foundations. Your next check gets +1. So you're kind of saying you get +1 to a check, I get +1 to a check. There weren't enough payoffs to having your opponent have like everything ready. But this is a Yamato Man card who is Deku 5. Deku 5 is ready 1 foundation for 3 speed and 1 damage. So is Yamato Man. But Yamato Man had, if your rival has no foundations ready, commit 1 foundation. Commit 1 rival foundation. So you might, throughout the course of a turn, commit their best foundation, stun them or they pass a check, and then you want to ready everything up to commit something else. So this was kind of a way to play that strategy, but obviously you'd have to be uncommitting the card that you wanted to commit earlier to make this work. So I don't know what the plan really was, but he had some nice check bonuses. Gyro Crash. Gyro Man was all about drawing cards. He got 1 damage, similar to, what's this Sugar Rush guy's name? Not Kent, Sato. Sato gets a damage every time you draw a card. That's Gyro Man. Gyro Man had a busted ability at first, and then he got nerfed at the end of his life cycle, and so he became really bad. His support, really interesting though, because this is the first time draw 1 card : was ever seen on a card as far as I know. Drawing a card is the cost, and then you get 1 damage for each card you have drawn this enhanced step. I definitely know slam decks that played this and were serious decks. I don't know how often this made it into a top cut, but there is definitely like a slam weenie beat cantrip style deck back in the day that would have absolutely fit in perfectly with My Hero Years 1 and 2. Wild Temperament. So this is the Slashman card we were talking about earlier. Your face-up attack with no abilities gets 1 speed and 1 damage. So I was wrong. It's 1 card on both. He doesn't. I knew you could get speed and damage. I forgot it's all in 1 card. So this would be too much if Ryukyu had this today, probably. But Slashman did not get stats anywhere else, so this wasn't too big of a deal. And having a sealed attack back in the day was not as easy as just playing a bunch of blank attacks. Ooh. Now we have new enhancements. This card did not see play at the time, but it probably should have. And it ended up on a world's winning list way late in its life cycle. Maybe the last time it was, the last set it was meant to be legal. It has enhance remove, add 1 earth foundation from your hand to your staging area. Playable while committed. So fast building something from your hand is not the best ramp, but it can be. No one was really using this to play super greedy stuff, but the quality or the impact of foundations baseline has gone up. They haven't gone up in comparison to attacks, right? But they are obviously, stronger effects now. So this card's probably crazy good in a retro world, especially if we're allowing off-symboling, but I don't think we are. I think off-symboling is gone from the Wednesday webcam stuff. Capsule Ice Beam. This is a really expensive combo attack. Combo's ally. All the Wily stuff is allies. And if this attack is blocked, your opponent destroys 1 foundation and their block does not clear from the card pool during the end step. So pretty convoluted little deal here. It's a 4 mid-6 that you have to play on a 6. I don't think anyone really played this one too much. Racing Rivals is funny. It worked in a really weird way with destruction effects or discard effects. After you discard this card due to your opponent's effect, add it and the top card of your deck to your staging area face down. So if your rival made you discard this card, you would build 2 foundations, and then you would die because you have no cards in hand. So I don't know if that effect ever really came up and saved somebody, but its main mode is discard a momentum, ready this foundation. Next, we got our rare solar powered. So this is that Tomahawk Man stuff I was talking about. This is your mid attack gets +1 damage, repeatable. It's a 3 diff. a 3 diff that just says +1 damage to a mid, but it also has F destroy. Look at the top card of your deck, add it to your hand or momentum. So a 3/5 that destroys, and you can choose between drawing a card or getting a momentum, is similar to strategic meeting or strategy meeting. But the fact that it also pumps all your attacks means it's pretty difficult to utilize effectively. I think most of the time you just want the +1 damage on a string, and then of course at that last crucial moment when you need one more attack or something, you pop it and hopefully it works out. But this one, I don't think saw too much play. If it was a 2 diff, it would have been everywhere though. We got Capsule Zap again, and then Yari no Tatsujin. This does a lot of attacks. F destroy. If your opponent has more ready than committed foundations, they must add the top card of their deck to their card pool face down. Yeah, I don't think anyone was playing this. It's a no block form ability in a format that got faster and faster as time really went on. And then the last one, we got Mace Master. It's a 0 diff. You get to commit it. Your weapon attack gets 1 damage for each card in your opponent's card pool. I really thought that this was going to find a home somewhere. Weapons just not really coming together. I've definitely seen a couple of decks run this though, and committing a 0 diff for +3 damage was great at the time. So I don't think it'd be too hard to utilize this. However, it just needed the water symbol. Nightman caring about clogging the card pool and having death as sort of the secondary card pool clog symbol just didn't really work out. But maybe there's enough death stuff now. You can play yin and yang. If we're playing reversals, this card obviously gets a lot better. So I have hopes for Mace Master. It's a very funny little card. But again, I think it was really just those symbols, because I'm stuck thinking about the standard environment, right? I'm thinking about when I played these cards in standard. Bringing them back to a retro world, Mace Master's probably kind of goated. If people aren't actually like turn 2ing you, Mace Master's probably one of the best zeros. We got another Fire Slash, Night Slam. This one just gets +2 damage if your rival has a card in the card pool. The 4 mid-6 slam weapon. And it's just a 4 mid-8 if they have a card in the card pool. Deadly up close. Your weapon attack gets +2 speed and then you seal it. So traits don't get sealed. And weapon was also kind of a sub theme here, I guess. Weapon keyword, similar to like ranged, had a lot of combos going on. Ranged and weapon are big Mega Man keywords. And slam a little bit too, because they introduced the slam attacks. So 2 speed and then you seal your attack. All you gotta do is play your enhances on it first. Crazy that the seal is an upside for that kid. Yamato Supia. This one was kind of interesting. This one took a while to catch on. I think people were split. This is one of the first times where an attack that is functionally blank, except it buffs itself to be overstatted, felt really good. A 4 diff that just says if your opponent is more ready than committed, this attack gets +2/+2. So as an opener, you could make this a 6 mid-6, and with Yamato Man make it like a 9/7, which was really good for a 4 diff. Gutsman is not in this set. Gutsman is in the tins and only ever got 2 cards of support or 2 attacks and a foundation. Gutsman is unfortunately in the tins. One of my favorite characters though. I played a lot of Gutsman compared to most. Budget constraints. People like went crazy for this card. This is not that cool. Enhanced commit. If you have drawn a card during this attack, your opponent discards a momentum. But it's enhanced commit, so it's repeatable. And the idea that you could like keep your opponent off momentum forever and ever was speculated to be really strong, but I'm not buying it, you know. I'm just not. Tomahawk Slam, so it's a 2 difficulty attack. I don't know if you can see it up there. 2 difficulty. And it's got enhanced discard 1 momentum. This attack gets +4 damage. So it's a 1 mid for 3. that you can discard a momentum, but it's not powerful 4, so it's limited to just 1. But it's a 2 difficulty 7 damage move. And Tomahawk Man's ability says to block a mid attack, to block with a mid block. You have to check at least a 5. So even if you had a +0 block mod, the difficulty was on a 5. So he played a lot of cool check hacks. He's got one of the nastiest one diffs ever, which basically just says your rival's checks get -1 to block. And then you would say, okay, well, you have to check a 5, and it's got -2. And then you put as many check hacks as you can, and you kill him with a big string of stuff that is pseudo 5. Oh, and here's a perfect way to do it. Here's an ultra rare action. Got unlimited blades, a 3/4, +2 low, enhance remove. For the rest of this turn, your attacks get flash. So Tomahawk Man's ability on block is a response. So if you needed to, and you just had to hit somebody like one time, you could flash all your attacks, and then they just have to keep checking 5s to block. And it doesn't matter how good their block mods are. The main way most people wanted to use this was enhance. If your attack has a printed speed of 2 or less, draw 1 card. After it resolves, you can add this card from your card pool to your hand. So this keeps coming back. You keep drawing cards. You keep playing low difficulty cards. And while the 3 difficulty does get harder and harder to pay, you know, draw a card on the first one, draw a card on the second one on a 5 is pretty strong. And then you can hold on to it for next turn. Or you can then remove it and then flash the rest of your attacks for the turn. A lot of people speculate with this card in various ways to make the card draw go like pseudo infinite. I don't think I ever saw the flash version get used, but this is like a quirky card that we might end up using. Got built for the tournament. A lot of Tomahawk Man cards here. So this is enhance your attack with 2 or less speed, gets stun 1. Again, we're not worried about speed as Tomahawk Man. We're finding cute little ways to make it hard to block. And then our discard 1 card. After your attack with 2 or less speed is not blocked, draw a card. So this is unique, but it was fundamental to your game plan, right? You give everything stun. You make them keep checking 5s. And whenever they can't, you get to filter through your deck to find more low difficulty, easy to play attacks. Proud Nose, this one definitely got the old errata. It just says R flip after you check a 1 recheck. You now have to destroy it and pay a momentum. Because it turns out having a 1 diff that just lets you recheck was way too good. The one check decks did not suffer that much. And then Quake, this has stun 1 and enhance, discard a momentum, discard the top 4 cards of your deck. You may add 1 weapon card discarded this way to your hand. It's a 2 mid 5. This card has been absolutely power crept. We get this effect for free on an ultra rare now. Stun Grenade, this is not. Man. Coming down to the wire in game 1 of the World Series. I got it on my other monitor. I thought the game would be over, but they went to extra innings. So, bottom of the 10th, 2 outs, bases loaded, down by 1. Alright. And he fucking killed it. Oh my god! Oh my god, I told my friend to put a bet that it's 6-3. Okay, I thought the Dodgers just won 6-2. Anyway, I told my friend to put a bet that the Dodgers would win 6-2. But I was off by 1. Anyway, sorry if I spoiled that game and you were VCRing it. Anyways, Clear Cutter. This is the card I was talking about earlier from Tomahawk Man. It's a 1 diff 4 check. And when it's in your card pool, your checks to play attacks get +1, and your rival's checks to play blocks get -1. So it's like Twisting Azure Inferno, but it clogs your card pool. And I don't remember any ways at the time to make the foundation not count towards progressive. So, you know, I don't know if there's a way to get the full Unleashed benefit, but it just has form added to your card pool. Because Tomahawk Man wanted to have less foundations than the rival. So debuilding yourself with this is, you know, beneficial to Tomahawk Man. This was one of the most frustrating cards for me to play against for a very, very long time. Love the last meme video. Need you to teach me how you do it and don't stop them. Oh, yeah, thank you very much. I really enjoy doing them. I'm self-taught, so I promise you it's not... It's hard, but it's not as hard as you might think. I just downloaded the software and I started pressing buttons in it. Most of the things are labeled, and the things that aren't labeled, you just have to Google. But yeah, hit me up on Discord. We can talk about it. It's going to be an exercise in Schadenfreude. Oh, Freeman can torment the dreams of the other New York teams? Yeah. Yeah, dude, the New York teams are getting it this year, huh? Here's another Night Slam. We saw the Night Slam before. We've seen Stolen Sword. Got Raging Slash. So this is a 4-diff, 4-high-5. That counted as overstated at the time. It is a blank Ryukyu card. Oh, and it has a +0 mid-block, which was phenomenal. That is phenomenal. This is a Ryukyu card. This is like functionally Ryukyu's +1 blocks in every zone. 4-high-5 was just slightly better, and you were gonna give it +1/+1 right over and over. But this is the Ryukyu of its era. Dr. Wily's Challenge. This one's funny because it's Desperation Zero, which probably has never been relevant. But it's got, after this foundation is destroyed during an attack, that attack gets -2 speed or +2 damage. So this was the number one thing that you were going to World's top 4. Yeah, I believe Raging Slash was Garrett Brett /Man in top 4. Dr. Wily's Challenge, though, was Dr. Wily's go-to. Build this with every ally support card, destroy it for the stats I need. Then it has Enhanced Commit. Your ally attack gets +2 damage. So this 2-diff in Wily, you would commit for 2 damage, destroy it for 2 damage, and then get 2 speed from Wily's effect, which was pretty difficult to deal with stats at the time. Rocket Buster. This one's funny. It's got a lot of keywords. It's got charge, punch, ranged, safe, stun 1, and then it has just a base enhance. So you have to be base to give this attack -1 damage and +1 speed. I've never understood why it would be so terrible if everyone else could have a 5-high for 4 or 5-diff. The keywords almost became relevant once. I know a local who played like some very funny haha deck where it needed to have punch ranged on every attack except Shield Ram and Valiant Assault. So this did make it into a locals deck outside of base. Here we got Capsule Flamethrower. This is the rare. This is the UR, sorry. The UR for Dr. Wily. It's a 2-check, 6-diff with combo. So you have to combo an ally. You have to play this on a 7, and then the combo enhances if your rival has 10 or more foundations, they destroy 2. So this is one of the earliest ideas of Deadlock. This is pretty much the time when Jasko looked at the game and said, okay, how many foundations is too many? How many foundations is the game taking too long? And 10 was the clean cut number. It also has enhanced add 1 ally card from your card pool to your momentum. which I feel like that part kind of got glossed over. Clogging your own pool wasn't super prevalent, but definitely doable. And I feel like in today's world, snagging a momentum for a progressive is pretty worth it. But having a 6-2 that you play on a 7 is definitely scary. But it's a second ultra rare. Lonely. This is a very funny card. So Lonely is kind of messed up. Uh, Lonely as F commit. If this is the only foundation in your staging area, add the top 2 cards of your deck to your staging area face down. So it's not a first form. So if you were destroying all the cards in your stage and you left Lonely as the last one ready, you could build 2 more, which was really nice. It's really ironic, and this is one of my least favorite things about card games, but it happens a lot. The character or the deck that is the problem also has one of the best, if not the solution. And this character, Napalm Man, and these symbols for Napalm Man were like the main reason why you would end up with 1 foundation in your own stage. He was like the main perpetrator, and now he's got a card that says, okay, you can fast build too. So kind of wild stuff. Sacrificing your own board, I think, became a way bigger deal probably with Cowboy Bebop, but I definitely saw Young Mercenary and other like pulled my trigger was a champ card where you were like paid off huge for just chewing away your stage. So they definitely existed, but it wasn't as emblematic of like how you get value as it is today. The bottom response was anytime someone stuns you, they lose 1 health. So you could build up like 2 or 3 of these, and the stun decks, the stolen sword decks in the limited environment could have a pretty tough time getting through your stage and doing kind of what they want to do. And at a certain health total, they just get locked out of doing it completely because it's when they play the ability, but before it resolves, I believe. Yeah, it's after they play an ability that would commit one. So this one was kind of funny. I definitely played a little bit of it. I don't know if it was integral to the success of the decks I played it in, but it came up. Premeditated attack. This is one you'd also know if you watched the Wily Retro success. This is after it's destroyed, you get to look at the top card of your deck. If it's an ally card, yeah, you can add it to your hand or build it face down. So this was a big part of the Wily engine. The Wily asset, Skull Fortress 2, just does this over and over and over again with every foundation. But this is a way to double up on that. I do think it like doesn't combo, like if the top card's not an ally, like this has to go first, which kind of sucks. But yeah, premeditated attack is a Wily staple. For Chivalry and Honor, we saw earlier. So now I'm just gonna probably go through and pull out characters we haven't seen before, and if you notice, we haven't pulled any characters yet. So this was one of the issues with drafting back in the day. You would really need someone to pass you a character. And if you were lucky and keen and, you know, doing it with just 1 box, there was a decent chance that you could just start drafting all the characters and then people would end up with nothing. So a lot of times, because we're just trying to have fun with draft, like it's not a competitive, sweaty environment when we were doing it. It wasn't like a regional or nationals draft. We would just put all the characters in the middle anyways. We just have everyone pick whatever character they want, you know? We have Petrol Powered, we have Capsule Ice Beam, we got Diplomatic. Okay, this one's worth talking about. Diplomatic, this is one of my favorite designs. It's probably pretty cancer, but it's so funny. It's a 1/4 with a +3 mid block, and it has enhanced commit. Your attack gets +1 speed. Surprisingly relevant when you're winning edge case games. But the main thing is it had response 5+. After your opponent removes, which means leaves, any number of cards from their card pool, they lose 2 health. So this was anytime a card left for any reason, they lose 2 health. Now it did have to catch an errata because it doesn't say due to an effect. So when this debuted, someone was like, well, clearing your card pool is it leaving the card pool at the end of your turn? And it obviously couldn't function where at the end of turn one, going second, your opponent builds 5, and then you check 5/5s and just burn them for 10. But clearing your card pool was starting to become a pretty spammable thing. There was decks that were kind of focused, similar to the way Attack on Titan's air symbol is, on just doing that. Doing it with foundations, doing it with petrol power, doing it with hunt for spiders and dragons. And I thought this was not a terrible check to that strategy. It asks kind of a like a game plan neutral question, right? Where it's like, okay, are you going to run out of health before you accomplish your goal? And obviously, if you have enough health to spare, you're just going to keep doing it if you're going to win the game. And the nature of universes kind of ruining plans as they go, I thought made this impactful in some cool ways. So I don't know. A lot of the strongest cards in the game remove themselves from the card pool. A lot of the strongest and most annoying strategies do this. And this doesn't stop them from doing it, but it can have a really nice payoff. Noise Crush is a reversal that lets you grab character cards. Napalm Slam is actually probably insane in today's world. This card was not super playable, or at least it wasn't played. It's probably very playable. But it just says, commit one of your opponent's foundations. 3 mid for 4. Check that out. That's just a jolt in real time. That's just a faster electric jolt. And I don't know, it was not a big deal to a lot of decks. It probably should have been. If we had characters that were putting way more speed and damage on things at the time, like at the same time, it probably would have been a bigger deal. You know, there were like powerful defensive foundations that you needed answers for. Just 3 mid for 4 wasn't cutting it a lot of the time, even back then. So I don't know. I think if we went back with our mentalities of today's deck building and played like more 0 diffs and tried to check more 5s, I think Napalm Slam makes it. Pressure Sensitive is funny because it makes you discard a card and lose a foundation to prevent your rival from destroying one of your foundations. Very costly for a 1/4 no block. Here's a victim of its time, Flame Sword. Check this one out. I actually like the art on this one a lot. I think this is one of the better arts from the set. One of the better foils too. 4 low 4, stun 1. Blessed attack. Amazing attack. Killing it. Combo E, was it reveal? No, discard a weapon, draw 2 cards. Insane, dude. For a 3 check, we're plussing insane. All this needed was the range keyword, and it would have fit into so many fire decks at the time. But unfortunately, all weapons just wasn't it. We got incredible ranged, which is just another way to draw and discard in Tomahawk Man, and it's got give your attack +2 damage, -2 speed. I lost my chat. I don't get to see my chat on my side. Here we go. Alright, whatever. There we go. Okay. Yeah, it saw a touch of play. You're not wrong. And then build for the Terminator sauce. Here's our first character. So we got Tengu Man. 627, air, life, water. And he's got some pretty funny abilities that actually I bet scale sort of well today. In a retro world where you can ready him, he's probably got a lot of sauce. And there are a couple of different ways to ready him. So he's got enhanced commit, your attack gets +X+X. X equals 4 minus the lowest printed control in your discard pile. So short and sweet of it is, you have a 1 check in your discard pile, you get +3/+3. I have lost because I cycled and it was ruled that I got +0/+0. But I believe that if you have no cards in your discard pile, you're actually supposed to get +4/+4. Somebody in the chat, I'm sure, can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm still salty about it, and I will have my revenge. The other ability on Tengu Man is our discard one card. After you check a 1, that check gets +2. Playable while committed. So this one is pretty obvious. You're trading cards in your hand to treat your 1 checks like 3 checks. And it turns out that most of the time, even if you check a 3, you're gonna fail because that's like what most decks fail when they check a 3. So this helped a lot on build turns and having like early stability. But Tengu Man just did not keep up with the decks that had more rechecking available to them and better availability to build while being lucky. The really successful 1-check deck was a blank 8-hander character. They just saw more cards similar to Mothra. They just powered out a better build early and played a more generic game plan of card advantage better than other characters. You know, the stats weren't the king of the game at the time when you get to play twice as many attacks. We got a couple more foundations here. We got a foundation that gives +1/+1 if you ready a rival card. I think Deku has that. Here's another Supia. We've seen these guys. This is what I was talking about earlier. Tengu won in that event's teams event. That would make sense, right? It was Badger Club. Alex Marco, I think, would play it. I think that was Turbo Man, though. I think that team's event Turbo Man was the Tengu Dive deck. And not Tengu Man. But I could be wrong. I don't remember. I don't remember their composition now that I think about it. But it had to be a Napalm Man, right? Everyone had a Napalm Man. It was Napalm Man, Ryu, Tengu Dive. Right? Actually, I don't think they played Ryu. That would have been Rikuo. Was it 2 Tengu Dive decks? Man, it's been so long. Alright, arrogant and overconfident. This is what I was talking about earlier. I briefly alluded to this. This is a 0 diff where when you play this card, if your opponent has at least 3 or more foundations than you do, you add it to your staging area. So this is a 0 diff 5 check that you can fast build, and if you had a bad build earlier, this can get you back into the game. This also works when you go second, which really helps 1-check decks as well. So this was kind of what I was alluding to earlier with, we have some zeros we can sequence and they'll clear our card pool. So this gets hit by Diplomatic. So there's a lot of really cool inner workings while these decks are honestly trying to do some of the most egregious things the format, or at least I personally had ever seen. It also helps Spike get some turn 1 kills. Yeah, it also helps some turn 1 kills. There's some crazy stuff, right? Like, there was definitely a level of acceleration. Yeah, it was definitely a dive Rikuo, because I played Rodney's Rikuo as Dimitri. I think we went to time and we tied, but I think my team won, and I think we were the only team that beat their team, or we were like the only team that tied their team. I think we were like the only team that didn't lose to them, at least in Swiss. But they probably ID'd in the final round. But I remember being salty after that event for a lot of reasons. One of them being that, like, I didn't lose to the champion team. But our rare for this pack is nothing personal. So after your opponent plays an ability on one of their foundations or assets that they have already played, you can destroy your 1 diff to commit that card. After your rival plays an ability for the second time, you can permanently lose one, and they commit that card. So it's nice. It's targeted in a weird way, but the cost always felt a little too heavy, especially for these symbols. These three symbols, outside of like Metal Man on two of them, kind of had to build like in a fair way. These weren't really like the rampy symbols, so this didn't seem like a fair trade off. Alright, let's cut through a lot of the stuff we've seen. Commons, commons, commons. None of these are new except our rare. So this rare is another one that kind of perfectly exemplifies the design philosophies. This is no airbags. This one I think was in the Turbo Man deck that won teams. This one was kind of a tough inclusion for me a lot of the time. But so what this card does is it's a 2/4 that when you commit it to pass a check, it counts as two foundations. However, if you commit it to pass a check that is not to play an attack card, right? Is it to play an attack? Yeah, if you commit it to pass a non-attack card, it will destroy itself. This is a boomer reprint? See, I don't know that. Beginner's luck? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's why I'm glad Tim Keefe is here. Because I didn't know that this was a boomer reprint back 10 years ago. But so this is a great example of we're ramping, we are playing things faster, we are emphasizing attack cards. The problem is that this also works on block, and sometimes you end up having to commit this card just for one foundation, just to pass a check. And so it was really dicey. I didn't like it. I think a lot of people did, but I was not a fan. Alright, let's sort through these. We got a spicy one coming. We got two new cards here. So we'll start with the character. So the character is Yamato Man. I played quite a bit of Yamato Man when he first came out. I like seven-handers. I like the all symbol. I was waiting for a seven-hander on the all symbol to come out. There weren't a lot of great ones. And because the all symbol was already the card draw symbol, seven-handers didn't stand to benefit as much as six-handers. But there's Yamato Man. You can see he is basically Deku 5. Joe, I played a lot of Joe. He wasn't great. He was fine. Devin Bernier's Joe deck beat my Leona deck, but he also just drew a lot of cards. Like he also had the issue of just drawing your whole deck. Also, Joe was rotating. Yamato Man. If your opponent has no committed foundations, you get the target commit one. No, Joe is in Joe Hagashi. Sniper Joe is not an all symbol character. Joe Hagashi, I think, is just Joe. Because they only did first names and not last names. Like Terry is just Terry, not Terry Bogard. Andy is just Andy. So Joe is just Joe. But Joe was cool. You had to discard cards from the rival's card pool, and you got to change the zone of an attack. And then he had response commit after an attack deals damage, draw a card, which is nice, but I don't know. It seemed like not a powerful ability for a seven-hander. But I played a lot of Joe, and I was waiting for another all-symbol seven-hander to come along. That's all. So Yamato Man is basically Deku 5. And there's not a lot of success I saw with him. But I did pull his action with him, which is pretty cool. And this is Yamada Damashi. I thought this art was really cool. I was really sad that we got like the reverse foiling on it, where like you can barely see in the art like the background is like one foil layer, and it pops off on the spirit a little bit, but not much. I was really hoping this would be like an ultra rare where like everything is super glossy over here. Like imagine like the foiling we get today. Like you guys complain about the cards and stuff, but like this, if this was foiled today, it would look so much better. But this has two different modes on it. One of them is after an attack receives a speed bonus, it gets plus or X, or it gets, sorry, plus or minus X damage. X equals a speed bonus. So if you give an attack plus 3 speed, you can respond with this to give it 3 damage or minus 3 damage. And then it has, after an opponent readies a foundation during the combat phase, add it to their hand. I was so stoked for this card. It didn't do a whole lot, but it had so many different modes. I felt like in today's environment where bonuses are bigger, you could definitely do a lot more with it. It also says after you play this card, you can discard it from your card pool or draw a card. So I blocked with this card a lot. I would block with this card and clear it from my card pool and feel pretty good about it. It's just a +2 mid. So, you know, if this was the only card in your hand, you could like zero out an attack, draw another card. Very cool stuff. I thought this is like a great power level for an action. My old man stories from the era is complain about how I had a seriously viable Joe deck into the 5-deck Mev 2014, but couldn't get anyone to play it when you weren't allowed to compete in majors. After 10 people asked, they didn't run it. Oh man, that sucks. I bet that's 2014, I think, was the Rochester 2K. Devin Bernier played a Joe Higashi deck at the Rochester 2K. That's the one that Miles and Chris Pratt got top 2 in. And that finals is still on YouTube, I think. I don't know how much that deck would have been similar if Devin looked at your list, but when you say the 5-deck meta of 2014, is that before or after Skullman and Gemini Man? Because Joe was really good at poking. You know, zone mix up, and then you get to draw a card, and the all symbol has a lot of draw triggers. You had Making a Killing, I think, at the time. Making a Killing just said, after you draw a card, commit a foundation, draw a card. Pretty nuts. Here we go. We got another time where we pulled the character and the rare. We'll do the character first again. Here's Nightman. Nightman's kind of sad because Nightman didn't have the right symbols, and they weren't pushing Nightman's gimmick. And you'll see what I mean, where he kind of counts as a defensive character, but not really, right? We've seen 2 characters so far. Speed and damage bonus, speed and damage bonus, check bonus, and like control your foundations. Here's Nightman. He counts as defensive. R, commit 1 foundation after you block an attack. That attack does not clear from your opponent's card pool during the end phase. So you're like chronostasising them, but it costs you a foundation. You have to commit 1. And then F, once per turn. Your next slam or weapon this turn gets plus X damage. X equals the highest printed difficulty on a card in your opponent's card pool. So his one ability is to clog your card pool for a turn. with a high difficulty attack. And his next ability is once per turn, he gets to put a damage bonus on a keyworded attack that almost never has throw. And then his ultra rare, I'll spoil it for you, is a weapon that gives itself throw. And I think discards cards from both card pools or from the rivals card pool for bonus damage. That's what he does. It's a cool mini game, but it's not super impactful. That's all I can say. It did not get the overwhelming support it needed, but maybe in retro. And then Flail Strike was cute because it saved you a foundation. It said, if this attack is not blocked, choose one card in your opponent's card pool. It does not clear from their card pool during the end phase. So if you did combine him with card pool clog during a rival attack and hit the reversal, you could clog 2 cards, which is pretty good. But as a 6-hander with 1 damage pump ability, you really have to work to find an opening to make it hit. And this is a 2-speed attack. Granted, again, you're trying to like add cards to the rival's card pool to make it faster during their turn. But it was very tough. It was very tough to make his gimmick work. So, you know, I'm not really sure how to feel about Nightman in today's world. There is a lot of ways to clog the card pool, but there's a lot of characters that benefit from it better. And there's like foundations that just do what he does stronger. Let's cut through these. We got another top 4 attack, this time a rare. So if you remember Slash Man, this is his gimmick. 3 mid 5 diff plus 0 low block. Has multiple 1. First enhance. Add the top card of your deck to your momentum. Seal this attack. So you have to do it first, and you don't get to multiple it. So you got 3 mid for 5, multiple 1, and it can seal itself and give you a free momentum. That free momentum was really good. So much so that I played this in other decks. They definitely were like on the more pet deck local level, but they had a chance, is all I'll say. But if you played it in Slash Man, you could get like 2 momentum off this attack, which was really strong. He obviously had ways to buff it. And late game, when you needed to, the multiple was a big deal. That 0 low block is really strong for its time. So, very, very funny stuff. Just a rare, though. Is this an ultra rare, right? Yeah. This was. We got 3 ultra rares so far. No, 4. 4 with unlimited blades. After Mega Man Tins, before Darkstalkers. Okay, yeah. So Iori, Vespera, Birch, and Lamborn. Yeah, when I very first started playing, Lamborn was pretty popular, and I think he rotated or something, like pretty early into Dimitri being a thing. I don't think Lamborn and Dimitri coexisted for very long. And if they did, Dimitri probably edged them out. But yeah, that was basically the metagame that people tried to explain to me when I first started playing. But I think when I started playing, the Darkstalkers tins were already out. But I definitely remember Brandon Jones played Vespera, and like as a rookie ran roughshod over a California PTC. And I think that was his first win. I think that was before Lilith. Okay, we got some Hallmark cards of the set here. We got Treble. Trouble's an asset that if Bakugo 4 had, he would be one of the best characters in the format, bar none. And all it says is this safe attack gets -1 damage, +1 speed. But it's repeatable. It's every attack. So every attack is 1 speed and 2 damage. That is insanely good stats for Battle for Power. This asset almost single-handedly, in my personal opinion, made base like top tier. I think this made base like as good as he was. I'm not even saying base was top tier because I think he was that great of a deck. I personally downplayed base at the time, but it had results. People were aware of it. People played around it. People deck built it around it. So it had to be somewhat real. It got second place at a PTC that I think it could have won. I don't know if it got streamed or if it ever survived, but I was at the PTC and I remember watching like a couple like missed responses for 1 damage here and there led to a lethal, an exact lethal that shouldn't have happened. But yeah, so -1 damage, which is actually +2, and +1 speed on every attack was really nice stats. And then it had enhance, add this card to your card pool. Your opponent adds 1 card from their hand to their card pool, and they draw a card, which the disruption level is pretty good back then. This is kind of on your last attack, you would slam this into the card pool and make your opponent draw a random card and hope that their good card that they were holding is now the wrong card. And I don't think that part ever mattered too much. But it was definitely annoying when it worked. When it worked, it worked. What can I say? Also, when you add that card to the card pool, right, the rival loses the card from hand, but it's +1 speed. So on your final attack, you kind of give it +2 speed, +2 damage, and it's very good. Yeah, base was a public boogeyman. I didn't want to believe it on the Void version, but it had portal barrier. Like, Void was just really good at the time. Would people jam decks with only safe attacks? So base did because he had to. Nobody else did that on purpose. There was a couple decks that ended up having more safe attacks than average. And honestly, if safe attacks were any better, people probably would have, just because reversals were truly annoying. Reversals were a big part of a lot of metagames. But we had introduced decent ways to get rid of safe as well, so it was never foolproof. That being said, I just remember most attacks with safe being below average, and not because of safe being like a really important keyword. I just remember thinking it was kind of randomly thrown on to underwhelming attacks to make them seem better. Yeah, in like a Vespera world, you might try to play 1 or 2 safe attacks over another similar attack. But usually you just kind of hope that the attack you already wanted to play was safe. Power Wave, right. Power Wave is like the +0 breaker block 3 low 5 that I already wanted to play, and it just happened to also be safe. So it made it kind of like a nice little poke block option select. But yeah, it really just came down to most safe attacks just weren't the good ones. Turbo Man. So this was definitely a polarizing character. I don't think he was breaking the game as much as people said he was, but I was definitely afraid of this guy. 720, crazy ability. First F, both players may add 1 foundation they could normally play from their hand to their staging area. So first F, we both build a card, is very funny, and almost no one ever like relied on it. Like you just would decline a lot of the time. I don't think I ever got anyone by just not doing my first F and them going, oh darn, I needed him to let me build this foundation. But people thought about it. But the main thing is enhance commit one foundation. If the committed foundation was added to your stage this turn, i.e., you built it during this turn, during the combat phase, your attack gets 2 speed and 2 damage. So not only was he able to go second and start with a foundation in play, but he gave better stats than any 7-hander did at the time. But it was a special condition that wasn't like super easy. So it was kind of fair. I don't remember even seeing Turbo Mans use the +2/+2 that had like, unless they were like way far ahead or they were really trying to maximize value on the maximum overhaul of the time. Yeah, you hold the foundation and attack on turn one, and then if they first F, you get to build one, and then just hope they don't rail off 20 on one foundation. But yeah, Turbo Man was real strong, and it wasn't so much about the +2/+2. It was about Scorch Wheel. It was about counting up foundations we built for Scorch Wheel. If you did I remember I would build a foundation that could ready itself multiple times. I think it was by paying a momentum, but those were like the holy grail, right? If you had a foundation that you could commit and ready itself like more than twice in a turn, you would fast build that, and you would sometimes be able to afford stats that way. I definitely had something. There's definitely something back then where I'm like, oh, I could get 3 or 4 activations without having to spend all my momentum. All right, we're starting to get some characters, which is good. I'm glad we're getting a healthy amount of characters because I wanted to show these off. Here, we'll do Mega Man 3. So Mega Man 3 is very funny. Your character cards get -3 difficulty. And then he has Form once per turn, Mill 4. You may add 1 attack discarded this way with a printed difficulty of X or less. X equals 2 plus the number of characters in your stage. So to get a 4 diff, you have to get another character stack. Other than that, this is like a really good consistency tool, but by himself, he clearly isn't doing a whole lot. First of all, you got to have another character to even like pick stuff up that mattered. And second of all, you really want to play the other Mega Mans. One of them is a 5 diff printed, so it's actually a 2 diff in this deck. And then you get a lot of different abilities going. Yeah, the Dr. Light promo I've heard about would have been sick as hell, man. I'm so sad that Dr. Light promo never came to be. Because there is definitely a setup to have like a lot of Mega Mans and use them for all different stuff and stack them like intentionally. And it just stopped after this Mega Man. So it's kind of sad, but yeah, this Mega Man doesn't really stand alone. He might have, pound for pound, the strongest single ability on your Mega Man Tron when you stack like 4 Mega Man. But by himself, he's just not doing it, right? So he's a very cool idea, but he very much is designed with other products in mind. And then we have Nippon Bonsai. Hopefully that's not racially insensitive. It's a unique 3 diff. Form once per turn. Your rival flips 1 committed foundation. So this was like a neat control piece you did with Yamato Man, right? You flip, or you commit 1 foundation if they have none committed. So you target one you don't like. You leave it committed, and then after the attack resolves, you form and then flip it, and it's a permanent solution now. It's a very slow game plan, but it was really effective at the time. The format was trying to be really, really fast, and so getting only that out of your 3 diff probably didn't warrant running it. However, it also has response destroy before your end phase. If your opponent has more ready foundations than committed foundations, you get to gain 3 life. So a really slow game plan, and really not an ability that's ever been worth it. I don't think I've ever seen anyone use this ability that wasn't like about to scoop anyways. So this one unfortunately didn't get played too much, even though I like the idea of the combo ability making it, I think we've seen it with Overhaul's one diff, right? Where flipping a committed foundation is like a more interesting little mini game of, you know, making your opponent choose the right cards to commit and stuff like that. But as a 3 diff, it just wasn't really going to pull its weight ever with that kind of requirement. I don't know. Your rival does commit foundations a lot. I think in a much, much slower game plan, that card gets really annoying. But again, none of these characters, again, so far, we don't have a single reduction of a stat. We don't have anything that is a defensive ability on these cards except Nightman after he blocks. None of these cards are defensive at all, right? Yeah, very soul piercing glare-esque. I would agree with that. One of those cards where if it was just a little more free, you'd run it all the time. Alright, anything new here? No. A rare. We got another Mega Man. So the Mega Man should be... Oh, it's at the uncommon slot. Mega Man should have been at the common. But we are getting more characters. I was very worried on the first half of this box that the character selection would be real slim. But we got a Silver Tomahawk. This is a rare. So it's a 0 mid for 5 as a 3 div. Are you guys playing a 0 mid for 5 3 div? That's pretty good damage. If you have fewer foundations than your opponent, though, it gets stunned too. So that's definitely a big improvement. And before your rival makes a check to completely block with a mid block, the difficulty of that check becomes 5. So it's kind of like a 2-speed for 5. If your rival blocks with a +3 mid block, they still have to check on a 5. So it's kind of like a 2 mid for 5 stun 2. This card was like integral to the success of these strategies. There was a Bomb Man deck that would throw away like its whole hand and then play 3 diff attacks at you without like ever building foundations. And if you didn't block one of the 3 diffs, it did like 12 damage. And this one was no exception. This is turn 2, you're getting swung at with this after it stuns you out. And if you don't block it, it's for like 7 to 12. What was Bomb Man? +3 damage? I think it was +3, yeah. So you get 2 Bomb Man activations. It's 11 damage mid. As a 0 speed. But you probably still couldn't block it. Very very frustrating card when it works out, but you have to play a very specific deck, right? Yeah, no, definitely the meta before Battle for Power was dominated by -3 speed 1 diffs and reversals, like characters that just went like, oh, Dust in the Wind was a huge one. There was Dust in the Wind, which turned all your bonuses, or turned 1 bonus for speed into a negative instead. So if you want to give 3 speed, you got -3 speed instead. And Battle for Power was definitely a response to that kind of design. Yeah, you guys opened the faucet way too much. But the game definitely needed a kick in the pants for aggression. I myself was part of the problem. I was playing the suffocating wall decks. My locals were playing self-destruct decks and like other attacks that tried to destroy the entire stage and like reset the game. There's a couple different ways to do that. So there's definitely some stuff going on. We got another Yamato man. We got a Master of Flight. So this one is very weird. Master of Flight, I think, got popular with Akuma a little bit. But it's not a great Akuma card. As E-Commit, add 1 face down card from your card pool to your hand. Or top of your deck. No, top of your deck. Yeah, add 1 face down card from your card pool to the top of your deck. Now the issue is back then you couldn't look at the cards in your card pool. So you had characters that would add the top card of their deck to their card pool, and then you wouldn't know what it was, so you couldn't guarantee a 5 check. Gyroman could add a card from his hand to his card pool, but that didn't make him playable. And then all the other cards that, like, all the other decks that had face downs in the card pool just did a good job of either clearing their whole card pool or ignoring progressive altogether. And then the other ability is if you've drawn a card during this enhanced step, this attack gets +1 damage, which is just rare enough to not hit on every attack ever. So I don't think this one got played very much at all. It was a cute combo thing. Yeah, you put a multiple copy on top. That's true. I'm literally starting in chronological order, Bromley. So yes, it is the oldest box. I started with the oldest one. You are correct. Alright, we're going to talk about this one. Now, what's really interesting is there's a lot of duplicates in the commons, which I don't know if that's a normal thing in card games, but that's special. I don't know if that's a normal thing in card games, any like right now, or if it was in 2014. But it's weird to see. It's truly weird to see. So, got a couple of cards to talk about here. Let's start with Turbo Slam. I think Turbo Slam in today's world would be ungodly powerful, even as a 3 mid 5. So you'll notice that there's like this stat line of a 3 mid 5 4 diff that we've never really gotten away from. And they usually have really nice but like restricted abilities that don't lend themselves to a game plan without stats. So it's got +2 high block, 3 mid for 5, and it's got only a combo in hand. So this can't be the first attack, and it only combos Slam, which was maybe the least common keyword trait, if not the least common keyword overall in the game, because this is only like the second set with the Slam keyword in it. I think Warriors of the Night came out after Mega Man, but Jade Talbane attacks were all in the starter, so I don't remember Warriors of the Night having slams. I could be wrong. Either way, Turbo Slam says add 1 foundation you could normally play, which at the time I think just meant shared a symbol with your character. It's debatable what it meant at different times. But you just get to build a card from your hand, which again, building from your hand is, you know, nowhere near as free or as open-ended as building from your discard pile. But this is still really nice when you're trying to cook up a really big Scorch Wheel to draw a million cards later. It's really nice when you get to select the card that you build its face up and it has an ability you really need. So this was another really fast, you know, we gotta speed the game up, ramp aggressive card. Definitely was part of some on the cusp of problematic builds, but not like a real game changer in the format. We've got, it was definitely supposed to always mean something you can chain right now. Yes, well, that's what I'm saying. I've definitely seen it get judged both ways. That's all I'm gonna say. I've definitely seen it win a world championship. Anyways, 3 difficulty, 4 control, weapon keyword on the foundation. After this card is discarded during an attack, this attack gets +2 or -2 speed. So this was meant to go with some Swordman stuff. He had a lot of those discard a weapon, right? We saw with his rare attack, his ultra rare attack. Discard a weapon card, draw 2 cards. This gives you +2 -speed. And then this is another like proto deadlock ability. First F remove. If your opponent has more than 10 foundations, your weapon attacks get stunned too for the rest of the turn. Where have you guys seen that one before? Have you been playing since Crimson Rampage? That's basically Hero Killer Deadlock, right? So this one was rough. It was actually really good, when you discarded it from your hand. I think someone played this in what's her name? Sakura? I think Sakura had the all symbol, right? I think there was an all symbol Sakura that would discard this for like -4 speed, which was like unbelievable minus speed, you know, at the time. Like Rodan would be unhittable actually back then. All the bad block mods too. Rodan would be untouchable. So this one was a really cute one that found a lot of homes in weird decks, but the first F rarely got used. But if it did, it was one of those first like deadlocks where you're like, wow, how was I supposed to survive? Like all your moves stun too. So Garrett milled people with that Sakura. Yeah, Sins of the Past. Wait, what was it? Was an Elizabeth card, right? No, it was the Dragon Queen lady card. Oh, I know what that card's called too. Something of the Dragon Queen, right? Am I tripping? Call of the Dragon Queen. Yes, I knew that card. That's very funny. That's such a Garrett Brett thing. Was deadlock not a keyword? Deadlock was not a thing yet. The very next set that we're gonna open, which is Blood Omen. I'm gonna open Blood Omen tomorrow after the whatchamacallit. Uh After the EU regional tomorrow, I'm gonna open a Blood Omen box. Blood Omen is the first time it was its own keyworded ability. Um, this is the first set after Garrett Brett won back-to-back worlds by doing literally nothing except blocking until he could play a 50 damage reversal, and he did it by having 50 cards in his stage. So this set introduced the idea of how do we punish people for building too much, because your printed 3 mid 5 just statistically gets worse as the game goes on and your opponent builds more foundations. The only way for you to catch up is to play more foundations that buff stats, but doing that is not something you can like force players to do. And again, they get outscaled by even more build. And if you're building things that add speed and your opponent is building things that reduce speed, you're still just in like this 1-for-1 war, right? So the idea that your attacks just get worse as the game goes on is what Deadlock is supposed to prevent. But as you'll see in the future, it took a while for Deadlock to really find its footing. This Give Everything Stun 2, pretty decent overall, like a good way to solve it, I think. But you'll see the Deadlocks in Blood Omen are very clearly prototype abilities. A lot of the Deadlocks are +5 damage. They're just, this attack gets 5 damage. Which, as you guys know from today's world, does not help in a Deadlock environment. So, one thing I did pull, which is very cool and very interesting, is we have an uncommon base, but this base is foil, even though it says uncommon. I don't know if that's a misprint, because I don't remember. I remember base being like special foiled, but they had done away with the ultra rare character slot. So I can't remember. Is the foil base like a rare special thing? Was it only like certain bases were foil? Because base was like not an easy character to get a hold of for a minute, just because everyone wanted a foil base. Yeah, it's listed as a UC. He's 1 out of 108. So I don't know if it's misprinted that he should be a UR, or if they had submitted it, because none of the other characters are foil. It's just base. But it's very cool. I like foil characters. I can understand why we don't do it anymore. I feel like I feel like if you were gonna do like XRs or something and you limited it to just character cards, I think that would be great. I think having like characters be 10-cent commons and like $5 alternate arts, XRs, whatever, would be cool as hell. You know, if you open like a case and you get like 4 or 5 like foil characters, you get like $20 on the secondary market for those. That would go a long way to like the collectability of the game. But I don't know if it's worth the production cost. So, but I would love it if every character had a foil version and they were just rare enough. I think the My Hero alt arts are depressing that they didn't like retain like a $10 value, or at least they didn't. I don't know. Not enough people needed them, so maybe they got to be more rare. That's solar powered. This is the repeatable damage pump. You think AOT1 does that? Okay, nice. I don't know. I pulled the foil Krista, but I don't know what the rarity on them is. So I know that's a thing in AOT1. I don't know if it's every character, but it's. I think if you go online, it's not worth $5. So that's, you know, there's only so much you can do too. It could be rare as hell, and people still just don't care. So yeah, if they did that with AOT1, that's really cool. Um, I don't think you can search for just the foil version. We got near mint. We have a near mint foil. Yeah, the foil is $1. The foil is less than $1. So unfortunately, it didn't work out with AOT1. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if they did that and they didn't retain value, I'm just wrong. But it feels like they should. I don't know. Ooh, okay. We got some good stuff here. We got one of the cards I was really hoping to pull just because it's something that you can't really do anymore. And then we got a couple of cards in this one to talk about. Okay. So let's start with Somersault Kick. Somersault Kick is very simple. 3 low for 4. It's safe. It's a kick. And it says enhance, change this attack zone to high. This attack gets -1 damage, which is +2 in base. Add 1 face down card from your opponent's staging area to their card pool. This is so easy to do. This was a huge reason, in my opinion at least, why base was pretty good and why the deck even worked in the first place. Is debuilding your rival a ready face down into their card pool was a momentum swing, like a resource swing that was really difficult to deal with at the time. Combine that with the fact that on his second attack, he's going to make you add a card from your hand to your card pool, and then he's still got treble to make the last attack even more difficult to deal with. Base did like all the card pool clogging that Nightman like wanted to do, but Nightman couldn't capitalize off the same cards because none of them were weapons or slams, except maybe Rocket Buster, but that was a base enhance. And Nightman doesn't want to reduce his damage either, so they shared Earth, but they didn't share enough of a theme. But this opener was so difficult to deal with. I remember this being like the kind of thing where if you got hit by these like 2 times in a row, like if you got hit somersault, your ability to block mostly went out the window unless your character was a dedicated speed reductionist. You know, unless your character had -2 speed on phase, you were probably in trouble, or you could clear your card pool a lot or something. But the little advantage of just like, again, think about it in today's world. You debuild 1 and it goes into your card pool. That's a Mineta enhance, right? Mineta 2 is almost playable off the back of that ability alone. So, and I think it's, yeah, you get to choose. So Mineta is the rival's choice. This is you choose. And while it does have to be face down, you get to choose a ready one if it's ready. So this card is such, I think this is such a good design because early game turn 2, it probably does nothing, right? It's probably not the biggest blowout in the world. It kind of feels bad to have a blank attack turn 2 like this, but it's got, I don't know. There's also times where I know people have left it low because that mattered, right? And you expect it to be a high, and you're holding a high because everything else is a high, and this becomes a high. But they just leave it low because they know that it'll hit, right? So I think this one is really, really cool design. You can play around it. If sacrificing foundations was as important as it is in today's world with deadlock and things like that, I think people might not have gotten blown out by this as much. But yeah, at the time, just having like one or two flip effects, your rival would probably have one or two flip effects or face downs, and you just get to clog their card pool and hit them with a 3 high for 6. That was solid. That was so solid. Next up, we have Feather Shot. This is a breaker 1/+1 mid block. It's also a 4 diff 2 mid for 4. And it only has one ability, but that ability is really solid. It is if you have less foundations than your rival, this attack gets multiple 2. So this is how a lot of the Tomahawk Mans ended up killing people. And I think this is how the Bomb Man deck that used a lot of Tomahawk Man stuff secured most of its wins. Because you would just spam attacks at people, and if you played 4 attacks and your rival blocked half of them, you were primed to play 4 attacks next turn and then generate 2 free ones without paying the check, right? So multiple, you don't have to pass the check the way you do Echo. And this was such a slimy, greasy, like disgusting way to win games. But Bomb Man puts 3 to 6 damage on every unblocked attack. And I know I lost one of the games to that deck because I blocked every single thing, including throws, for like 2 turns. And they played one card that gave them 1 momentum. I took damage from like 1 throw or something. And then the Feather Shot and the 2 multiples are the only things that hit me for more than 2 damage. But they equal 30 damage when they go unblocked. So this was definitely like a combo killer. This was a attack spammer's delight. But the 2 momentum costs did make it pretty fair, I would say. I was just hoping that there would be more interaction for blink attacks back then. But I definitely have been dumpstered because I blocked every single thing. You know, because the other attacks are 10 damage too if I don't block them. So I might as well. But just the sheer output that card could give you was pretty great. Here's Dr. Wily 2. If you don't know what Dr. Wily 2 does, he reveals his momentum after either player's ready phase, and you add 1 ally attack from your momentum to your hand, so he recycles ally attacks. And then he destroys a foundation. Your attack gets 2 speed, and if it deals, your opponent destroys 1 ready foundation. So a lot of times, if you know you're only going to be able to block once or twice and you have, you know, good face tank defense, it's really good to commit out to block the first attack, and then you have nothing ready to be destroyed. It's bad when you get caught with everything ready and you don't have the right zone or you can't block for whatever reason. Your whole stage is going to go away. You're going to lose at least 1 per attack that they play. So Wily has a lot of refunds to his own costs. He has an asset that makes it so you can almost always go resource neutral. If you destroy a committed and build a ready, you're going resource positive, right? He has a lot of synergies based with those ally cards. And it's probably for the best that he didn't get more ally cards. But he definitely had a very restricted deck list. And then our ultra rare was Tornado Hold. Whoops. Okay, well, Tornado Drop. We got Tornado Hold. I love this card a lot. I think this card is so cool. So Tornado Hold's a 1 check. But if you check this card in order to play a foundation, it's a 3. So it doesn't hurt your build turns. And if you combine it with Tengu Man, Tengu Man says after you check a 1, where is he? I don't need to bring him up. You guys know what he does. But anyways, after you check a 1, Tengu Man discards a card to give that check +2. So because all abilities that reference the check value talk about the printed check value before modification, on a build turn, you could check Tornado Hold while playing a foundation on a 5, discard a card, and the 1 check becomes a 3, becomes a 5. And I think that's pretty cool. I think it's very funny and kind of frustrating for the opponent, but it's very funny. But the big thing is it's a reversal. And it says if this attack was played as a reversal, ready 2 cards in your staging area that have not been ready. I don't think all 1 checks should get that text. This 1 check got the text because it's supposed to be in a deck that plays like almost only 1 checks. I don't think every 1 check should ignore it when building. It's just not how the game should be. But I do think more 1 checks should let me ready my character. I love this card because it lets me ready assets and characters. And the air symbol has a lot of really cool characters for readying. It has a decent amount of cards that let you ready your character. And I think that playing a 1 check reversal is kind of a fair cost for it. So in Tengu Man, this was your way to get a big, 7 low for 9 on the rival's turn or whatever. But you could also just ready like 2 speed hate cards. If you had commit for -3 speed twice and you use it on the first 2 attacks and you ready them both, like that's insane, really. Readying cards like passing the torch, right? You block, play your last card as a reversal, ready passing the torch to draw 2 cards. A lot of really cool stuff. I wish that there was more ways to play with readying your character, but I get where it should be rare. It shouldn't be as easy as readying a foundation. But playing a 1 check on the rival's turn, I think counts. I think that should qualify. Oh, we got 2 characters in 1 pack. So that's something I have not seen before. 2 characters in 1 pack has got to be the Battle for Power special. So we got a non-foil base. So the foil base has to be like a special, like low quantity thing. So it's pretty crazy that I don't know what it would be. Probably like 1 per every 2 cases or something. I don't think a foil base would be 1 per case, but we got a pretty special base. So here's the non-foil version. And then here's Tomahawk Man, which I've talked a lot about. His play style was emblematic of the time. Not many people played him. Technically, I did pull a chrome. I think that base is like the chrome of the foil base is like the chrome of its era. It's just a random foiled character when none of them are. But we got a Tomahawk Man who's a 628. First F, if you have fewer foundations than your opponent, your checks to play cards get +1 for the turn. And then response before your opponent makes a check to play a mid block, the difficulty of that check becomes a 7. So no matter how good your mod is, no matter how slow the attack is, you will check a 5 and then you have to commit 2 cards to block with a mid. And everything he plays is a mid, most of it's 0 speed, so it doesn't matter what you're blocking with, but you're gonna have to block on a 7. And no amount of speed reduction is going to help you. Speed hate does not factor in with this guy at all. So when we were talking earlier, I was talking to Tim Keefe and we talked about how, there was a lot of characters with stat reductions and how none of them in this set do that. A big part of that is because of this guy right here. And truth be told, now that I'm looking at it, I'm going to thumb through here. I don't think that there is like a speed reduction on a single card I've pulled. I guess the Dr. Wily card, when you destroy it, gives -2 speed. Hidden Behind Flames gives -2 speed if you discard it. You have one when you discard it, one when you destroy it. And and the card I'm about to talk about, I guess. Oh, Kleptomaniac. Discard a momentum for -2 speed. That's one we glossed over as a common. So to get -2 speed in this deck, in this set, in this limited environment, you had to discard a momentum, or you had to play a card called Admission Fees. Admission Fees is supremely notorious for a later character's design that cared about face downs in the card pool, and it would probably go hard as fuck in Mina 2, and that's because it has E, add the top card of your deck to your card pool face down. This attack gets +2 or -2 speed. So -2 speed, but you add one to your card pool is a pretty bad ability. It's only situationally useful, and the more you do it, the worse it gets. Giving +2 speed is a much cleaner transition, and obviously there's a lot of cards that are trying to get those face downs out of your card pool. Later, there's characters that just ignore face downs the way that Mina 2 does. And so that was just a better solution than trying to keep clearing your card pool. But this card, in the characters that can run it, is incredibly gross. The characters that can play it effectively, it's like free. It's a free 2 speed or -2 speed on every attack, and it actually opens up their options because you get cards that add cards from your card pool to your hand and stuff like that. So the other ability is after your opponent draws 2 or more cards due to a non-character effect, you get to draw 2 cards. This has definitely happened, but I've never seen it. I know it's happened. I've never seen anyone use that response. No matter how many times I've responded with Templar, my opponent would not commit to draw 2 as well, because they probably needed the -2 speed. But Admission Fees becomes important later. And when we open Street Fighter versus Darkstalkers, we'll almost certainly talk about Admission Fees again. Let me sort these guys. Okay. Got a big boy. I'm glad to see this card. It was not super used at the time, but I think this card is really cool. It's another good peer into the ideas in the set. So, Dark Comet, just like the box topper, it's ranged and safe. It's a 2 check, but it's 6 difficulty, and it says enhance. Discard 1 card from your opponent's card pool, your opponent adds 1 card from their hand to their card pool. So if your opponent's not blocking and you're not stuffing their card pool, this attack does nothing. So luckily base, makes them add a card from their hand to their card pool. And this one, doesn't add any more to the progressive, but it continues to chew their hand up. And then it's 8 damage. And base adds a load of damage on this stuff, similar to Bakugo 4. This is very much like the Explosive Rebuke of its time, right? This is the Explosive Rebuke slot, 2 check, makes them discard a card, but you're discarding from their card pool, not your own, so it's not as quite of a vroom vroom card. But that 4 high for 8 stat line was kind of insane, and making your opponent lose a card in their hand was also pretty insane. So this was like a way to kill people, even if they had a million speed reduction abilities. You would just make them not able to block because they have no cards in hand, and then they're taking 8 plus 2 from all the responses you get for minusing damage. And it was supposed to be like a lethal 1-2 punch, right? You play an attack, you play Dark Comet, you do bases once per turn, you do Dark Comet, and your opponent should have lost 2 cards on the first 2 attacks, whether or not they blocked. Very powerful stuff. It did not end up coming to fruition because playing a 6-2 as effectively a 7 difficulty combo not really feasible. Not as fast as we wanted it to be. Uh, but I think Dark Comet was like a good idea for the design element. It just it just needed to be a 5 diff really, or it needed to be like swap it and Dark Laser. If it was the 4-2 and it was like the 4-2 4 mid 5 and Dark Laser was a 6 diff powerful 2 that ups its needs to be a 4 check. Very funny, George. uh I think if the I think if the Dark Comet was if the 6 diff was the powerful 2 card that ups its powerful rating and generates momentum for itself, I think they would have both seen a lot more play. That's how I feel, at least. I get that the 4-2, like the powerful one, can be played at the end of a string, but alright, nothing too new here, which isn't surprising. We're getting to the end. We got another nothing personal. Dude, it's so weird. After living in Attack on Titanland, pulling the same card in the same box feels weird. Much less the same rare. I'm pulling the same card in the same pack, so like it's so weird after opening Attack on Titan and then being like, oh, I guess I guess we can pull the same cards. Alright, there's another Turbo Man. Now we got a new rival. So this one's kind of funny. This is like Mega Man only, Mega Man specific in this set. It has form once per turn, discard a character card, draw a card. Sometimes you get the characters in your hand and you don't want them there. You'd almost never do that for Mega Man until you were like super stacked. But other stacking characters did like this. And then your turn commit, so you can't do it with a reversal. Your attack gets 1 damage for each character in your stage. Max 5. Oh, in both stages. Sorry, both staging areas. Max 5. So max 5 is about all you'd ever really get anyways. Most character stackers do only stack up to 4 characters. Some of them stack up to 8 if you get crazy and cool about it. The maximum 5 is very funny to me, because the idea that you stacked 5 characters and your rival as a character, you know, and you're getting to like 6 or 7 damage, I don't know, that seems like you earned it. We stopped putting maximums on cards, and then we started doing it again, and the maximums never make sense. Whenever I see a card that's like broken and I think it should have had a maximum, I just think it shouldn't have been printed. Ooh, we got one of my favorite pet cards. Are these the... No, of course they're not. This is one of my favorite pet cards. This is Walking Arsenal. It's a very simple card. Very pretty card, too. This is another card where I feel like if we got a stab at a reprint with the new layout and the new foiling, tell me this wouldn't pop off, man. Tell me the new art team wouldn't slam dunk this shit. This card is ripe for a reprint foil. I should do a video on cards that should get reprinted. And, you know, the first one will just be 10 Templars, but then I'll do like a real video where I do a top 10. Walking Arsenal. Art commit. After your opponent plays an ability that would add any number of cards to their hand, they lose 2 vitality. That's it. That's all it does. Would you play this card today? It's a 3/5 that you have to commit. Your rival can die to this. Are you playing it in 2024? I sure as hell am. I'll tell you, I make goals for myself. Anyone who watches my channel knows. I like to make little goals for myself to feel like my deck did its thing without having to win. I like the idea that my deck can be trying to do something unique and different without me having to win to have fun. And one of the ways I do that is I make challenges or goals, and when I was out of the game, 2018, I took a Spike starter deck. So not the one that Tim Keefe was talking about, that one Worlds. I took a Spike one, like modified starter deck, two Worlds to play with all the burn effects. Uh, there was a lot of effects that made your rival like lose a certain amount of health, right? Let me see if I can get it on screen for a second. Well, maybe not. You guys know Spike 1. Spike 1's a 724. He just plays solid stats and defense. But he has an unblockable attack that just has first E. This attack is unblockable. It deals 6 damage, and then you can't play attacks for the rest of the turn. The enhanced step ends. Like, it's basically just a 6 diff. Your rival takes 6. That's it. Except there's responses that when you deal damage, you burn. So it was a very uninteractive burn deck that didn't really play offense. It played great defense and, you know, tried to stack up these 4 unblockables over the course of the game. Going into the event, I told myself, I want to win a game via the burn damage specifically on Walking Arsenal. I want my opponent to either lose the game because they will not activate card draw abilities, or it was probably like burn effect in general. Like, I just wanted a burn effect that wasn't the unblockable attack. And in round 1, my opponent had such awful dog shit luck that in game 2, I got 2 Walking Arsenals out on turns 1 and 2, and then put them down to, I think, 6 life. And they had to either activate a card draw ability and burn down to 2, or not ever draw cards again, right? So they did the card draw, I burned them down to 2, and then I forget what ability it was. I played like an Urban Shower or something like that. And Urban Shower also has a burn effect, but only if it deals damage, and they're at 2 life. And I remember we like fought over the damage of this attack like so hard for me to get it at 1. But they managed to get to 0, but it took all of their resources, and they ended up passing their turn. And I just build on my turn. I didn't draw the unblockable. And on their turn at 2 life, they open with their first attack, and their first enhance is just draw a card. And I immediately respond with the Walking Arsenals, and they were like, yeah, man, my hand is so bad. I just had to hope that you, like, forgot. But I was so happy, and I feel bad in retrospect because it's one of those things where, like, without the Walking Arsenal, like, he probably steamrolls me by drawing cards because his deck was really good at that. But I was just so happy that, like, that was basically the checkmate, right? Where it's like, I'm actually preventing you from doing these things without negating it, you know? I ended up going, like, 4-3 or something with the deck. It's like one of the only times I didn't make top cuts at a Worlds event. I guess that's not true. For singles, I normally don't top. For singles, my Worlds are, like, not great. It's only, like, after I came back to the game and just said, fuck it, I'll play the Bebop power creep. I'll play the Libra power creep. I was really big into Soul Calibur at the time. I bought Soul Calibur 6. I'm one of only 2 million people that bought Soul Calibur 6. So when they don't make another Soul Calibur game ever again, you can't fucking blame me. I bought the fucking game. So it's just sad that to compare, Mortal Kombat I think sold like 15 million and Tekken was 12 million for that era, that, you know, cycle of fighting games. And Soul Calibur 6 did 2 million. So, you know, that's kind of where it's at. But anyways, I finally came back to the game and I just said, you know, let me just get with it, get with the trends. And I did okay in singles. I was great at teams because in teams I always played those decks. In teams, my friends needed me to win, so I played the meta, whatever, you know, a good deck. I played a good deck in teams, basically. One that I felt confident in. In singles, I played, like, goofy shit, like trying to burn you with Walking Arsenal. So that's also the event where I played a 50-minute game one against Phil Birch, where I won by playing all four unblockables for exactly 24 damage against another Spike. And then with 10 minutes left, he turned 2'd me by playing back-to-back six stiffs and me checking back-to-back threes. And they did 24 damage because they were 12 and 12. And I was like, all right, man, I guess we fucking tie. Burn is coming back slowly. The problem with burn effects is that they're almost always keyed on dealing damage. So they're just a weird version of like bonus damage. When a good burn effect is like Walking Arsenal, where it is it's like a not powerful enough deterrent until you combine it with a normal game plan, right? Because he was put in a position where he's like, man, I'm gonna lose if I don't draw cards and do something, because my deck had the inevitability of unblockables. So I don't know if that strategy should come back, but burn effects is like a small punishment. I don't know, makes sense. I hate bonus damage burn. It's so stupid. Like, just make it more damage. Why is it a burn effect? Really? For partials? Like, come on. What are we doing here? Here's Crash Drive. Crash Drive is a reversal. It's a 4 difficulty, 5 mid, 3. So it's a very fast reversal. It gets 1 less difficulty. It's 3 difficulty if you are low health. And it has discard 1 momentum. If this attack deals damage, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, add 1 foundation you can normally play from your stage or to your stage, and discard the rest. This is so conditional. You can imagine that this did not see a ton of play. People definitely tried to use it because it's a fast as fuck reversal, and getting the choice of one of the foundations off the top of your deck was good. The on hit is worth a momentum in my opinion, especially if you're playing Turbo Man, but a 3 damage base is not always gonna feel so good in this format. If this card had debuted like when I first started, like a year prior, probably would have dominated the format. Probably would have been like a supremely powerful reversal. But all the other stuff that came out in the same set kind of made a 5 mid for 3 not feel so great. But in the formats before, where just poking for 1 momentum on different turns and turning that momentum into more build would have been a big deal. So we've now got our last pack here. I'm trying to count. I've already hit 6 ultra rares. So I don't think we're going to get an ultra rare. We already got, in my opinion, the best ultra rare, which was the Scorch Wheel, right? The best of its time. Flame Sword's really nice. Tornado Hold is one of my favorites. It's probably my favorite attack in this set. So I got what I wanted out of this box. I got the card that makes base playable. I got a foil base. We got base's ultra rare. Base has a box topper, so base is definitely on the table if we pull more safe attacks in the other packs. And I won't know what I'm going to build until, we get all the boxes open. But I'd say we got a lot of the stuff I wanted from this box, so I'm very happy with it. Let me sort these out real quick. We got one of the better ones. We did get one of the better cards for last. This card has been an obsession of mine at multiple points in the game's history. I've definitely brewed on this card in retro in the past a lot. Now, granted, having 1 copy of it's not great. It's something you build a whole deck around. But this is Transform. Transform is another 2/4 action from the set. It has a response similar to Yamada Damashi. After your opponent adds a foundation to their staging area during the combat phase, remove it from the game. That does not say due to your rival's effect. So the idea with the bottom response is when you do Turbo Man's first form, and your rival builds a foundation that they want, you can respond with transform and you can remove it from the game. So if your opponent was trying to gotcha trap card you, there's a pretty good chance that a Turbo Man deck would just respond with transform. Now, that's not the obsession part of this card. That's not how I stewed over it a lot. What transform does is form, add one slam attack with a difficulty of 4 or less from your discard pile to your hand, and the next time you play a copy of that attack, add this card to your staging area face down. So, you play this, you play a 4 diff on a 5, and then you build a foundation. That is very obviously mega powerful for any deck, tutoring an attack. But then on top of that, you get to clear your card pool from the card that added the attack to your hand. But then on top of that, you get to build a foundation to be used for the rest of the turn. So, it is a 2/4, and the adding to the progressive difficulty to play that attack does matter.